What if your fated mate was your destroyer, and your only salvation came from a rival alpha, darker, deadlier, and bound to ruin you? This isn't love. It's betrayal, desire, and a prophecy dripping in blood. Before we begin, subscribe now and turn on notifications, because once this story starts, you won't want to miss a single moment. The moon hung high, swollen in silver, casting its cold light over the pack's gathering ground. Hundreds of eyes were locked on Emma, the chosen Luna, the fated mate of Beta Marcus. She stood tall, hands trembling at her sides, heart racing with a fragile hope. Tonight was supposed to be her coronation, the night her bond was blessed before the pack. Instead, Marcus's hand cracked across her face. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Emma staggered back, gasping, as whispers rippled through the crowd. Her cheek burned, tears stinging, but it was the humiliation, the betrayal, that carved deeper than any wound. "You were never worthy of me," Marcus spat, his voice loud enough for all to hear. His grip tightened on her arm, bruising, forcing her to face the jeering pack. "Did you really think you could stand beside me as Luna? You're weak. You're nothing." Her wolf whimpered inside her, aching for the bond that had just been desecrated. The sting of rejection hit harder than the slap, a tearing pain that split her soul in two. She tried to breathe, to steady herself, but her chest collapsed beneath the weight of his cruelty. Laughter rippled. Eyes narrowed with pity, others with delight at her fall. Emma's heart screamed, "Don't cry. Don't break here. Not in front of them." "Bow," Marcus commanded, shoving her down. "Show them what a pathetic Luna you are." Her knees hit the dirt. Rage and shame tangled in her chest. Her lips parted, but no words came. Instead, silence thickened, sharp, suffocating, until a growl sliced through it. It wasn't Marcus's. Low, guttural, vibrating with a dominance that made every wolf present stiffen. The sound curled through the night like smoke, primal and dangerous. The crowd parted instinctively, fear scent rising, heads bowing, though no command had been given. Emma lifted her eyes and froze. At the edge of the circle stood a man cloaked in black, his presence a storm against the still night. Broad shoulders, eyes like burning steel, and an aura of raw power that swallowed the air itself. His gaze locked on Marcus, then shifted to her, lingering, heavy, claiming. The stranger's voice rolled through the silence, deep and lethal. "Touch her again," he growled, "and you die." The pack gasped. Marcus stiffened. Emma's pulse thundered. For the first time tonight, the ache in her chest shifted, not gone, but altered, laced with something new, something forbidden. The rival alpha had arrived. His growl still echoing, Damien stepped forward into the moonlight, eyes blazing with a promise that would shatter everything. The crowd held its breath as Damien stepped fully into the moonlight. His presence swallowed the space, towering, dangerous, a storm contained in flesh. Every wolf could feel it, the pull of an alpha whose power rivaled kings. Marcus bared his teeth, fury sparking in his eyes. "You dare intrude here?" he snarled, but his voice cracked under the weight of Damien's dominance. Damien didn't flinch. His gaze slid past Marcus like he was nothing, locking instead on Emma, still on her knees, her cheek flushed red from the slap. For a heartbeat, her shame melted beneath the intensity of those eyes. His stare wasn't pity. It was possession. It was hunger. Slowly, Damien spoke, voice rolling low and deliberate. "She is mine." The words struck like lightning. Gasps tore through the pack, wolves shifting uneasily, scandal burning in their whispers. A rival alpha claiming another's fated mate? It was blasphemy. It was war. Emma's heart stuttered. His? Her soul trembled at the audacity, yet her body, traitorous, wild, leaned toward the sound of his voice. Heat curled through her veins, tangled with the ache of rejection. Marcus's face twisted in rage. He yanked Emma to her feet, shoving her against his chest as though to prove ownership. She's my mate, he spat, claws threatening to pierce her skin. You can't just take her. Damien's lips curved into a cold smile, sharp as a blade. Then why does the bond scream of her suffering? Why do I smell her tears? A true mate does not break his Luna in front of the world. The pack murmured, torn between fear of Marcus and the intoxicating power of Damien. Emma's breath hitched. His words sliced through her, cruel truth wrapped in salvation. For the first time, someone had seen her pain, had named it aloud. Marcus lunged forward, snarling, I'll tear you apart. But Damien moved first, crossing the distance with predatory speed. His hand shot out, gripping Marcus's throat, slamming him down into the dirt before the pack. Gasps erupted as Marcus choked, clawing at Damien's iron hold. Emma's chest heaved. She should have been horrified. Instead, a dangerous heat stirred in her belly at the raw dominance in Damien's touch. Violent, protective, claiming. From this night forward, Damien growled, his gaze never leaving Emma. You are no longer Marcus's Luna. You are mine. The pack erupted into chaos, cries, howls, the scent of fear sharp in the air. Marcus roared, breaking free, blood dripping down his neck. He lunged again, this time straight for Damien's heart. But before claws could meet flesh, Emma's body moved on instinct. She stepped between them. The crowd gasped, time freezing as she raised her trembling hands, eyes locking not on Marcus, but on Damien. Her lips parted, her voice barely a whisper yet sharp enough to cut through the storm. Stop. Her gaze didn't falter, her soul tethering to the dark alpha in a way that burned through every lie she'd been forced to live. The battlefield stilled. Marcus halted mid-strike, Damien's hand frozen mid-lunge. All eyes on Emma, the rejected Luna standing between two alphas, her choice blazing in her eyes. The courtyard was still frozen in silence, Emma's trembling figure wedged between Marcus and Damien. For one aching moment, she thought her voice had stopped a war, but then Marcus's hand seized her wrist, yanking her back to his side. Mine, he snarled, dragging her against him as though she were a possession. His claws grazed her skin, not enough to pierce, just enough to remind her what he could do. His eyes burned with rage and humiliation, not love, never love. Damien's gaze followed the motion, cold fury darkening his features, but he didn't move. He simply tilted his head, studying Emma with that same unnerving intensity, as though committing her pain to memory. This isn't over, he murmured, for her ears only. Then, like a shadow, he disappeared into the night. The pack dispersed in uneasy murmurs, leaving Emma alone with her fated mate. Marcus's grip tightened. You dare humiliate me in front of them all? His voice was a low growl, venom curling around every word. Emma's lips trembled, but she refused to look away. You humiliated me first. The slap came faster than thought, sharper, crueler than before. Her head snapped to the side, the taste of blood on her tongue. Tears burned, but she refused to let them fall. Marcus shoved her inside their shared chambers, slamming the door shut. His body loomed over hers, dominance pouring from him like poison. You think I'll let him take you? You think I'll lose my Luna to a rival alpha? No. I'll remind you who you belong to. His mouth claimed hers, not with love, but with punishment. His kiss was bruising, suffocating, his hands gripping too tight, forcing her submission. Emma struggled, every muscle screaming for freedom, but the cruel bond between them ignited, hot and searing, chaining her to him. Her body betrayed her, trembling, responding even as her heart recoiled. Marcus's voice was a whisper of cruelty against her ear. Even if I break you, you'll still be mine. The night stretched endless, filled with dominance, with pain disguised as passion. When at last her body collapsed under the weight of his claim, her soul screamed louder than her voice ever could. Hours later, Emma stirred in the darkness. Her body ached, bruises blooming along her arms and neck, every mark a reminder of the cage she could never escape. She pressed a shaking hand to her lips, tasting the salt of her own tears. And then she felt it, a shift in the air. Her gaze drifted to the window, and her breath caught. Damien stood there, half shadow, half moonlight, his eyes glowing silver. Not pitying, not gloating. Watching, waiting. "Emma," he said, voice low, dangerous, thick with something she couldn't name. "You don't belong to him. You never did." Her heart pounded in her chest, torn between terror and temptation. Bruised, broken, yet burning inside, she realized she wasn't alone. Damien had come for her. Emma's breath caught in her throat. Damien's silver eyes burned through the dark like fire in the night. He hadn't moved, hadn't broken the silence, yet she felt his presence crawling across her skin, sharp, electric, dangerous. "Emma," he whispered again, voice low, gravelly, vibrating with power. "Come with me." Her pulse hammered. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Then, the door slammed open behind her. Marcus stormed in, the stench of rage clinging to him. His eyes found her at the window, found Damien, and the air split with a feral roar. "You dare!" Marcus lunged, claws unsheathed. But Damien was faster. In a blur of silver and shadow, he leapt through the window, seizing Emma by the waist. She gasped as the world spun. Glass shattered, wind howled, and then they were gone. The night swallowed them whole. Emma clung to him as he carried her across the forest, his arms unyielding, his chest solid beneath her cheek. Every step reverberated through her body. Every breath of his was heat against her skin. She should have been terrified. Instead, she burned. "Put me down," she whispered, though her hands fisted in his shirt, refusing to let go. "You don't want that," he growled, voice vibrating against her. "Not after what he's done to you." Her heart twisted. Shame, fear, longing, all at once. "You don't understand. I can't leave him. The bond—" Damien stopped so suddenly the night itself seemed to still. He looked down at her, his jaw clenched, his gaze like molten steel. "The bond is a chain, but chains break." Before she could answer, he turned, carrying her over the threshold of a looming fortress, his territory. The gates closed behind them, iron sealing her fate. Inside, torches flickered, casting shadows across stone walls. The scent of him filled the air. Smoke, pine, danger. He lowered her to her feet, but his hand didn't leave her waist. Emma stumbled back a step, her body trembling, every nerve alive. She feared him, she craved him, and he knew it. Damien leaned close, his breath hot against her ear, his voice a snarl and a promise all at once. "You're mine now, whether you like it or not." Her lips parted, her chest heaved, and for the first time, Emma realized the truth. Marcus had bound her with cruelty, but Damien might ruin her with desire. Her body froze, her mind screaming denial, but her heart betrayed her, because deep down, she wanted it to be true. Emma's heart thundered in her chest, Damien's words still burning in her ear. "You're mine now, whether you like it or not." The torchlight painted his fortress in molten gold and shadows. She stood trembling beneath his gaze, torn between terror and the forbidden pull in her veins. Damien's hand lingered at her waist, thumb brushing her skin as if he owned it. And part of her feared he already did. But outside these walls, the storm was building. By dawn, the news had spread across the territories. Marcus's humiliation, Damien's abduction of the beta's fated mate. The pack stirred like a hornet's nest kicked open. "Marcus declares blood war," one of Damien's lieutenants growled, striding into the hall. "The Crescent Pack rides before nightfall." Emma's stomach clenched, her old pack, her people, her family. She could already picture Marcus's sneer, his voice dripping with venom. "She was mine first. She betrayed us all." The throne room roared with Damien's warriors pledging allegiance. the air crackling with bloodlust. Damien sat on his dark throne, his silver eyes fixed not on his men, but on her. "This war begins with you," he said, voice low, dangerous. "You're the fire that will burn his house down." Her breath caught. She wanted to deny it, wanted to scream that she never asked for this, but the truth gnawed at her ribs. She was the spark, and sparks set kingdoms ablaze. That night Damien found her pacing the chambers he'd given her. "You hate me for this," he said, stepping closer, his shadow swallowing hers. Emma's chest heaved. "You've made me a weapon in a war I never wanted." Damien's hand caught her chin, forcing her to look at him. "No, little Luna. Marcus made you weak. I'll make you untouchable." His lips hovered just above hers, heat and danger all in one breath. She hated herself for leaning closer. Before she could surrender, a horn blasted through the night. The fortress gates rattled with shouts. Warriors dragged someone across the floor, shoving them into the torchlight. Emma's heart stopped. It was her best friend, bruised, bound, eyes wide with fear. She was caught at the border, a guard snarled, spying, feeding Crescent Pack information. The hall erupted in snarls and growls, blades raised. All eyes turned to Damien, all eyes turned to Emma. Her breath shattered as Damien rose from his throne, fangs glinting. "Then let her blood start the war." The warriors dragged Emma's best friend toward the steps of the throne room, the crowd baying for blood. Damien's decree hung in the air like a blade. "Then let her death start the war." Emma's cry tore through the hall. "Stop." The sound silenced the chamber. Her chest heaved, eyes burning with desperation as she staggered forward. "She's innocent," Emma pleaded, her voice breaking. "If she spied, it was for me. Punish me, not her." A ripple of murmurs swept through the warriors, but Damien's expression didn't change. Cold, unforgiving. A predator deciding whether his prey was worth sparing. Slowly, he rose from his throne, boots echoing against the stone floor as he closed the distance between them. He stopped inches from her trembling frame, his shadow swallowing her. His eyes locked on hers, silver burning through the tears in her gaze. "You beg for her," he said quietly, almost tender. His fingers grazed her jaw, a dangerous caress. "But you've never begged for yourself." Her breath hitched. His touch was fire and ice all at once, sending shivers down her spine. She wanted to recoil, but his presence held her captive. "You'll learn, little Luna," Damien murmured, his lips hovering by her ear. "Mercy makes you weak, and weakness is what men like Marcus feed on. I won't allow it." He turned his gaze back to his warriors, voice sharp as steel. "Release the girl." Gasps filled the hall, but no one dared question him. Emma's best friend was shoved aside, alive but shaken. Emma's knees nearly gave way in relief, but Damien's hand clamped around her wrist, steadying her, claiming her. Without a word, he pulled her from the hall, through the winding corridors of his fortress, until they reached the firelit solitude of her chamber. The heavy doors slammed shut. Silence pressed in. "Why?" Emma whispered, voice fragile. "Why spare her?" Damien's hand slid from her wrist to her waist, pulling her flush against him. His eyes blazed. "Because your tears belong to me now. Every cry, every shiver, every broken piece. You're mine." Her heart pounded so loudly she swore he could hear it. "You sound just like him," she whispered, defiance trembling on her lips. "No." His thumb brushed her mouth, silencing her. "Marcus wanted to break you. I want to remake you. You'll learn the difference." And then his mouth crashed against hers, fierce, searing, merciless. The kiss devoured her, consumed her, until she gasped into it, hands braced against his chest. But her body betrayed her. Instead of pushing, she melted. Heat, hunger, chains of desire wrapping around her heart. When he finally pulled back, his lips still grazing hers, his voice was rough, triumphant. "You didn't resist," he whispered, his eyes burning with dangerous satisfaction. You didn't resist. Damien's words still burned in Emma's ears long after he left her chambers. She pressed trembling fingers to her lips, tasting him still, the ghost of his kiss scorching her skin. Her body betrayed her, aching with hunger she couldn't deny, yet her soul writhed with guilt. She sank onto the edge of the bed, burying her face in her hands. What have I become? By morning, the fortress hummed with whispers. Everywhere she walked, heads turned, eyes followed her, hungry, judgmental, condemning. Warriors smirked behind her back. Servants bowed, but with pity in their gazes. Cursed, one voice hissed as she passed. She'll bring ruin, muttered another. 2 mates, 2 alphas. Blood will follow her steps. Emma's stomach knotted tighter with every word. She pulled her cloak tighter around her shoulders, as if the fabric could shield her from the venom curling through Damien's pack. She had once dreamed of being Luna, of leading with grace, of bringing peace. Now she was a scandal, a weapon, a spark to ignite a war she never wanted. In the war room that evening, she stood at Damien's side, his hand resting possessively on her lower back. The gesture looked tender to others, but to Emma it felt like chains her body leaned into even as her heart recoiled. She carries ruin with her, one elder muttered too loudly. The goddess herself cursed her womb. If she binds to him, destruction will follow. Emma's cheeks burned. Her throat tightened, but Damien only chuckled, his silver eyes flashing. Then let ruin come, he growled, pulling her closer. She's mine, and mine alone. The pack fell silent. His declaration was absolute, but the doubt lingered in their eyes, and Emma felt it too. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am cursed. That night sleep eluded her. The fortress was quiet, the moon spilling pale light across her chamber. She turned restlessly, her mind tormenting her with Marcus's cruelty and Damien's kiss. A faint creak made her freeze. Her breath caught. From the shadows a figure emerged, cloaked in black, the familiar scent of pine and iron flooding her senses. Her heart stopped. Marcus, she whispered, horror lacing her voice. His eyes gleamed with cruel triumph as he stepped closer, finger pressed to her lips before she could scream. His breath ghosted hot against her ear, dripping with possession. You'll always belong to me, Marcus whispered, his voice a venomous vow. You'll always belong to me. Marcus's words coiled around Emma's throat like a chain. She shoved him back, but his smirk only deepened, sharp as a blade in the moonlight. Leave, she hissed, clutching her robe tightly around herself. If Damien finds you here, Marcus's laugh was low, cruel. You think that Alpha wants you? You're a weapon to him, Emma. Nothing more. Ask him what oath he swore before you ever crossed his path. Her chest tightened. You're lying. But when Marcus slipped into the shadows, gone as swiftly as he appeared, the seed of doubt had already been planted. The next day, Damien's touch was heavier, more possessive. His hand lingered at her hip, his gaze burned as though daring anyone to question his claim. His warriors bowed, but their whispers returned, hissing curses in corners of the fortress. Emma couldn't shake Marcus's words. A weapon, an oath. That night, she followed Damien through the fortress, her footsteps soft against the stone floors. He descended into the old war hall, the walls lined with maps and blood-stained banners. She pressed herself against the archway, watching. 3 elders knelt before him. Damien's jaw was sharp in the torchlight, his voice cold as steel. Marcus will fall, he declared. For what he did to my blood, for the humiliation of my house. He will bleed. Emma's heart stuttered. His blood? His house? Damien's hand slammed onto the map table, rattling the goblets. His eyes burned with silver fire. And the girl? One elder asked cautiously. Damien's lips curved, not with tenderness, but with something darker. She is the key. The goddess bound her fate to his. When Marcus falls, his pause was lethal, a blade poised over her chest. She'll fall with him. Emma's breath caught, icy terror washing through her veins. The room blurred, her knees weakening. Was Marcus right? Had Damien claimed her not out of desire but vengeance? Was every kiss, every touch, just a chain forged to bind her tighter until Marcus's ruin dragged her under too? Her hand flew to her lips, trembling. She wanted to scream, to burst into the hall to demand the truth, but her voice lodged in her throat. Instead, she stumbled back into the shadows, silent tears streaking down her cheeks, the echo of Damien's vow searing through her. From the doorway, Emma muffled a sob. But Damien's head snapped toward the sound, silver eyes narrowing. He knew someone was listening. Damien's head snapped up, silver eyes narrowing toward the shadows where Emma hid. The weight of his gaze pinned her, stripping her bare without a word. Her breath caught. She staggered back, too late. Emma. His voice rolled like thunder, low and dangerous. Come out. Her heart hammered. He knows. She stepped forward, trembling, her face wet with tears. The hall fell silent. Elders exchanged glances, but no one dared breathe. You heard? Damien said, his voice as sharp as the steel strapped to his side. Emma's lips parted, but no sound came. The truth was carved into her chest, burning. She turned on her heel and ran. Emma! The fortress erupted in shouts as Damien's boots pounded after her. She burst into the courtyard, moonlight drenching her as she sprinted toward the gates. But the growl that split the night stopped her cold. Marcus, his massive wolf form, stood at the entrance, fur bristling, golden eyes locked on her. Behind him, warriors from her old pack poured in like shadows come to life. Get away from him! Damien's roar split the air as he shifted, bones cracking, silver wolf tearing through flesh. The courtyard became chaos. Wolves collided, snarls ripping through the night. Blood sprayed, steel flashed. Damien's warriors fought savagely, but Marcus was a storm, tearing through them to reach her. Emma's pulse roared in her ears. This can't be happening, not like this. And then both alphas clashed. Damien slammed into Marcus, two beasts colliding with a force that shook the ground. Teeth snapped, claws slashed, their howls echoing through the night sky. Emma stumbled forward, screaming, "Stop!" But they couldn't stop. They tore into each other, fueled by hate and possession. Damien's silver wolf struck like lightning. Marcus's golden fury answered with fire. Their battle was not just for blood, it was for her. Emma's legs moved before her mind caught up. She shoved through battling wolves, her robe torn, her body bruised. She reached the center, where they tore at each other's throats. Stop! Her voice shattered into the night. You'll kill each other. For a moment both wolves froze, eyes flashing toward her. The air was thick with blood, lust, and fury. Marcus shifted back first, blood streaking down his chest. His golden eyes softened for only her. Emma, don't you see? You'll always belong to me. Your wolf knows it. Damien snarled, shifting back as well, his hand reaching for her. You're mine, only mine. Don't you dare. But Emma's wolf betrayed her. A whimper broke from deep within her chest, soft, wounded, aching, and it wasn't for Damien. It was for Marcus. Her knees buckled as silence fell, every warrior watching her crumble between them. Marcus staggered forward, blood pouring from his side, but his hand still reached for her, and Emma's wolf whimpered again, louder this time, for him. The battlefield still reeked of blood. Wolves dragged bodies away, the courtyard stained with the ruin of their fury. Emma's knees trembled, Marcus's blood still warm on her hands. Her wolf had betrayed her, whimpered for the man who had broken her, even as Damien's arms wrapped around her shoulders like iron shackles. Take her, Damien growled, his voice shaking with a rage he kept leashed by a single thread. His warriors lifted her, carrying her into the council chamber, where elders from every surrounding pack had gathered, summoned by the chaos. The chamber was stone and firelight, a place where history had always been carved in blood. Now, all eyes were on her. Marcus staggered in moments later, shirt torn, chest still bleeding, but his glare burned with defiance. "She is mine," he spat, golden eyes blazing. Damien stood tall, silver gaze sweeping the council. His voice was thunder. Not anymore. He pulled Emma before him, his grip unyielding. Her body shivered, but not from fear alone. The heat of his claim seared through her veins. "Tonight," Damien announced, his voice echoing off the stone walls, "I end this war. Tonight, before every alpha, before every elder, I mark what is mine." Gasps rippled through the chamber. To mark her here, before the council, was no declaration of love. It was war written in flesh. Emma's lips parted, a protest caught in her throat. Her eyes darted to Marcus, who looked ready to tear the walls down to reach her. But she was too weak, too bound, too lost in the storm of two men's obsession. Damien tilted her chin up, his thumb brushing her trembling lip. "Look at me," he commanded. And though her body screamed to resist, her eyes locked onto his. Then, before the council, before the gods themselves, Damien bit deep into the soft curve of her neck. Emma gasped, her body arching as pain melted into fire, her wolf howling inside her. The chamber erupted, shouts of outrage, growls of approval, Marcus's roar shaking the stone pillars. Blood dripped down her collarbone, crimson staining her pale skin. Damien's mouth lingered on the wound, sealing it with heat, with dominance, with hunger. He pulled back, eyes glowing silver as he declared, "She is my Luna. Let any who challenge this face ruin." The council fell silent. The mark gleamed like a brand, binding her fate in blood. Emma swayed in his grip, her body fevered, her soul torn apart. Her wolf whimpered again, but this time her lips betrayed her. Soft, barely a breath. Yet it silenced the hall. "Marcus." Her eyes fluttered closed. Her body collapsed in Damien's arms. The chamber froze, shock rippling like wildfire. Damien's arms tightened around her limp body, his eyes burning murderously across the hall, at Marcus. The chamber still thrummed with silence, Emma's faint whisper, Marcus's name, hanging like a ghost in the air. Damien's grip tightened around her limp form, jaw locked so hard a vein pulsed at his temple. The rival alpha's silver eyes burned across the hall, not at the council, not at the elders who muttered behind raised hands. No, all his fury was fixed on Marcus. "You will pay for this," Damien growled, his voice low and lethal, before sweeping Emma into his arms and storming from the chamber. The corridors blurred with torchlight as he carried her to his private chambers, laying her on furs that still smelled of him. He loomed over her, his hand brushing the mark he'd carved into her skin only hours before. It pulsed faintly, blood and bond alive, but his face was carved from stone. Even marked. "Your lips betrayed me." Emma stirred, her lashes trembling before her eyes fluttered open. The ache in her neck throbbed, and yet it wasn't the pain that broke her. It was the cold fury in his gaze. "I didn't mean," she whispered, voice weak, throat raw. Damien's hand gripped her chin, forcing her eyes to his. "Then tell me it wasn't his name. Tell me you didn't whisper Marcus while my teeth still bled into your skin." Her mouth opened, but no words came. Her wolf twisted painfully inside her, torn between the bond of fate and the mark of choice. His laugh was dark, humorless. "So it's true." "No," she cried, hands reaching for him, her fingers curled in the fabric of his shirt, desperate, trembling. "I don't want him, Damien. I don't want him." "Then why does your body call for him when you're in mine?" His voice thundered, the fury in it shaking the very air. Before she could answer, the heavy door creaked open. A warrior entered, dragging a figure bound and bloodied. "Alpha," the warrior said, shoving the prisoner to the floor. "We found him near the border carrying messages." Emma's eyes widened as the prisoner lifted his head. His face was battered, but the crest burned into his torn tunic was unmistakable. Her old pax mark, Marcus's crest, glared at her like a brand of shame. The chamber froze in time. Emma's breath caught in her throat. Damien stepped forward, eyes narrowing. A spy. The prisoner spat blood onto the furs, lifting his chin with a wolf's defiance. She doesn't belong to you, she never will. Before Emma could scream, Damien's blade was unsheathed in a flash of silver. With one brutal strike, the spy's head fell, blood painting the floor. Emma's scream tore from her chest, raw and broken. She stumbled back, her hands slick with warmth as droplets of crimson touched her skin. Damien turned to her, his chest heaving, eyes wild. Now do you see? They'll keep coming for you, even your own people, and you. He stepped closer, his shadow engulfing her trembling form. We'll never walk free of this betrayal. Emma stared down at the lifeless spy, her heart pounding. The crest of her old pack glistened in blood. For the first time, doubt coiled in her gut like poison. Was Damien right? Or was Marcus pulling her back even from the grave of rejection? The metallic scent of blood still lingered in the chamber. Emma's chest heaved, her palms sticky, stained red from the spy's execution. She wanted to scream, to run, to fight, but Damien's gaze pinned her where she stood. His voice dropped to a husky growl, roughened by both rage and something darker. They will never stop coming for you, Emma. Not until every piece of you belongs to me. Body, soul, heart. Her throat tightened. You can't keep me like this. But the words died as his hand slid to her waist, pulling her against him. The fury in his eyes flickered, cracking under the weight of something more primal. His forehead pressed against hers, his breath hot, uneven. You make me weak, Damien whispered, almost as though confessing a sin. And I'd burn the world to ashes for that weakness. Her wolf trembled inside her. She should have pushed him away, should have screamed at his brutality. Instead, her body betrayed her, leaning into his heat, craving the safety of the very danger she feared. The kiss that followed wasn't soft. It was fire and steel. His lips crushed hers with hunger, her cry muffled against his mouth. His hands roamed as though he could erase every bruise Marcus had left, replace them with his own mark. And God's help her, she let him. Clothes tore. The furs beneath them swallowed her whimpers. Every bite, every graze of teeth, every growl against her skin unraveled her resolve. She hated herself for it, but she craved more. Craved him. When his mouth claimed her throat, right where his mark throbbed with heat, she arched against him, her nails raking down his back. His wolf surged, shadows flickering across his skin as if even the beast inside him knew this night was dangerous. Say it, he snarled between kisses. Say you're mine. Her lips trembled against his jaw, tears mixing with desire. I'm yours. That broke him. The alpha lost control. Their bond deepened in ways that scorched her from the inside out, every pulse of pleasure laced with a terrifying sense of surrender. She was drowning, and she didn't want saving. By the time the night ended, her body bore his possession, her heart straining against the chains she'd once despised but now clung to. When dawn spilled its pale light across the chamber, Emma stirred, her body aching, her wolf silent but alive with a dangerous warmth. She turned to Damien, watching him sleep for the first time without armor, his hand still tangled with hers. For one fragile heartbeat, she allowed herself to believe she wasn't broken. But the illusion shattered with the sound of horns, loud, urgent, a war call. The door slammed open. A guard's voice boomed through the chamber. Alpha! He's here! Emma sat up, her heart pounding. Who? The guard's next words froze her blood. Marcus stands at the gates. He's brought prisoners. Emma's stomach dropped as she stumbled to the window. Her breath caught in her throat. Below, at the iron gates of Damien's fortress, Marcus stood tall, his eyes locked on her window. And beside him, bound in heavy chains, bloodied but alive, were her parents. Emma's scream died in her throat as Marcus lifted her mother's chin for the pack to see. His voice carried through the courtyard a cruel echo. "Choose, Emma. Come back to me, or watch them die." The courtyard roared with chaos. Warriors growled and shifted at the sight of Marcus, their eyes fixed on the bound prisoners he dragged like trophies. The morning air reeked of iron and fury, wolves pacing restlessly as tension wound tighter with every heartbeat. Emma's nails dug into the stone window ledge until they broke skin. Her chest heaved, eyes locked on the broken figures below. Her parents. Her mother's face bloodied, her father's back bent under the cruel weight of chains. "Marcus," she whispered, voice shaking. "No." Behind her, Damien's growl vibrated like thunder through the chamber. He stormed to the balcony, his body a wall of rage, his aura exploding outward, commanding the attention of every wolf in earshot. "You dare step into my land with this mockery?" Damien's voice was a blade, sharp and merciless. "You'll leave their corpses here before you ever touch her again?" Marcus smirked, tilting his head with wolfish arrogance. His grip tightened on Emma's father, dragging him forward by the chains. "You talk of corpses, rival. Yet this one's death is hers to prevent." His eyes lifted, icy, cruel, locking directly onto Emma. "Come to me, little Luna, or they bleed, your bloodline for your freedom. A fair trade, don't you think?" The crowd gasped, whispers spreading like wildfire. Some pitied her, some cursed her name, and Emma broke inside. "No," Damien snapped, pulling her back from the ledge as though shielding her from the very sight. His claws dug into her waist with desperate possessiveness. "He's baiting you. He doesn't want them alive. He wants you broken." Tears blurred her vision. She shoved against him, her voice raw. "They're my parents, Damien. My blood. I can't." His grip hardened, his jaw locking in fury. "You are mine. I will not lose you to him." For a heartbeat, she swore she saw something flicker in Damien's eyes. Not just anger, but fear. Fear of losing her. Fear of weakness. But Marcus's laughter cut through the silence. "Look at you, torn between beast and blood. They were right. Your curse is destruction. Wherever you go, ruin follows." Emma trembled, the words clawing into her soul. She stepped forward, standing between the two alphas, her body the fragile line between their wrath. "Stop this," she screamed, voice cracking with desperation. "I'll do anything, just don't hurt them." Her mother sobbed behind the gag. Her father lifted his chin, pride even in chains. "Don't you dare, Emma," he rasped through bloodied lips. "Don't you give yourself to him again." Marcus yanked the chain tight. The sound of flesh tearing echoed. Emma shrieked, her wolf howling inside her chest. "Enough," she begged, her knees buckling. "I'll come. Just please." But Marcus only smiled, eyes gleaming with cruel satisfaction. "Too late." And in one brutal, merciless motion, he dragged the blade across her father's throat. Blood poured, vivid and horrifying, painting the earth crimson. Emma's scream shattered the sky. Her body collapsed against the balcony rail, her cry a howl of despair. Below, Marcus lifted his bloodied blade toward her. "One down, little Luna," he taunted. "Shall I take your mother next?" The world stilled. Blood stained the courtyard stone, her father's body crumpled like discarded prey. Marcus's mocking smirk burned itself into Emma's vision, a scar her soul would never forget. Emma's scream broke into a sob so raw it cut through every wolf's chest, even those who'd long turned cold to her suffering. Damien's hand clamped around her waist, holding her back as her knees buckled, but this time she didn't lean on him. She shoved him away. Her fingers trembled, not from weakness but from the fire igniting in her veins. Her wolf, long subdued, clawed inside her chest like a beast starved of freedom. "You'll pay for this," she whispered, voice shaking but filled with lethal promise. "With blood, with ruin, with everything you love." Marcus tilted his head, amusement flashing in his cruel gaze. Finally, he drawled, the little Luna bares her fangs. He yanked Emma's mother forward by the chains, pressing the blade against her throat. Shall we see how sharp they are? Damien's roar split the courtyard. Warriors shifted, fur bristling, claws scraping the dirt. But Emma raised her hand. Not yet, she said, and the weight in her tone startled even Damien. Her grief had hardened into something sharper, colder. Let her go, Marcus, or I'll do worse to you than he ever could. She nodded toward Damien without looking at him, her eyes locked on her tormentor. For the first time, Marcus's smirk faltered. Damien stepped closer, confusion flickering through his fury. Emma, he growled, torn between pulling her back and letting her stand. Her hand curled into a fist, nails digging into her palm until blood welled. She welcomed the sting. No more weakness, no more running. If vengeance is the only thing I have left, then vengeance will be my mate. The courtyard erupted with whispers. Warriors shifted uneasily, some bowing their heads, not to Damien but to her. Damien's eyes narrowed, a dangerous pride flickering beneath his control. He leaned into her ear, his voice low, dark, almost reverent. Finally, you're becoming mine. Emma shivered, not entirely from fear. His words tangled with the storm inside her, feeding the wildfire. Marcus's laughter returned, sharp and mocking. Then let her prove it. He shoved her mother to the dirt, raising his blade. Strike me down, little Luna, or watch her die next. Emma's body trembled, but not with helplessness. This time, with power. She stepped forward, every movement laced with deadly grace. Her wolf surged, her aura sharp as steel. Touch her, she whispered, her voice a low growl, and I will rip your heart out with my bare hands. The courtyard fell silent. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Then Marcus pressed the blade just enough for a bead of blood to appear at her mother's throat. Prove it. Emma's wolf howled inside her, and something inside her snapped. Her aura flared, shadows twisting around her form, her veins glowing faintly with power that wasn't hers. Or maybe it was. Damien's presence burned within her, his alpha strength flowing into her like molten fire. Her reflection caught in the broken shards of a nearby mirror, cast down during the struggle. She gasped. Her eyes glowed, not the soft amber of her wolf, but the same ruthless crimson as Damien's. Emma stumbled back from the mirror, her chest heaving, her reflection glaring back with alpha power not her own. She wasn't just Damien's Luna anymore. She was becoming something else, something terrifying. The courtyard was still vibrating from the sight of her reflection, crimson eyes glowing with alpha power that wasn't meant to belong to her. But Emma didn't flinch. Not anymore. Her wolf surged beneath her skin, no longer caged, no longer silenced. For the first time, the whispers of the pack bent toward her like reeds in a storm. They felt it too. She was no longer just Marcus's rejected Luna or Damien's claimed prize. She was something far more dangerous. Marcus spat into the dirt, hiding the unease flickering in his eyes. Power borrowed, he sneered. It will eat you alive, Emma. Her lips curved into a slow, defiant smile. Then let it feast. She turned, not to Marcus, but to Damien's wolves. Their fur bristled, their eyes wide, but their bodies leaned instinctively toward her. The mark Damien had left still burned at her neck, the bond coiled in her veins like a serpent. She drew on it, commanding, her voice low, but carrying like thunder. Tonight we don't fight for thrones, she said, each word dripping fire. We fight for vengeance, for every scar, for every humiliation, for every father ripped from his daughter. Marcus has taken from me, from us all, and now we take everything from him. The wolves roared, howls tearing into the night sky. Damien watched, pride and hunger burning in his crimson gaze. She wasn't standing at his side anymore. She was standing equal. He stepped close, his breath ghosting her ear, his words both a growl and a caress. "My war bride," he murmured. "Lead them, and I will follow." The title seared through her, intoxicating. Not Luna, not victim, war bride. Her body trembled, not with fear, but with the weight of it, the thrill of command, the burn of Damien's eyes devouring her. Together, they led the charge. The night became chaos, fangs against steel, claws ripping banners, fire spilling like blood across the battlefield. Emma fought like a storm given flesh, every strike guided by fury, every scream drowned beneath the howl of her wolf. Marcus's warriors faltered under her gaze. She was no longer the weak mate they mocked. She was the blade in Damien's hand, the shadow in their throats, the vengeance of every broken bond. By dawn, the field was theirs. Marcus's forces scattered, but his vengeance lingered. Emma returned to the palace, her body aching, her hands slick with blood, her heart burning with victory. Damien was waiting, his chest heaving, his shirt torn, his eyes filled with something raw, hunger, pride, possession. He pulled her close, their lips nearly brushing, his voice a ragged whisper. "You've ruined me," he said, "and I don't care." Her answer was a shiver and a kiss that burned hotter than any fire. But then, the ground trembled, screams echoed through the halls, smoke curled into the sky. Warriors burst through the doors, panic written on their faces. Marcus's army had returned, not for the battlefield, but for revenge. Flames devoured the palace walls, spreading like hungry beasts. The roof groaned, beams collapsing in showers of sparks. And Emma was inside. The last thing she heard before the flames swallowed her was Damien's roar of her name, breaking through the inferno. The palace screamed as it burned. Beams crashed down like thunderbolts, sparks showering the air, smoke thick enough to choke the breath from Emma's lungs. She stumbled through the inferno, her skin blistering, her eyes streaming, her wolf clawing inside her chest to escape. "Damien!" she cried, voice breaking against the roar of fire. The heat became unbearable, flames licking closer, weaving her into a cage of fire. For one soul-crushing heartbeat, Emma thought it would end here, that Marcus had not only stolen her family but her life. Then the doors exploded inward. Damien stormed through the blaze, his figure wreathed in firelight, his wolf glowing in his eyes. His roar shook the burning walls as he found her, ripping beams aside with inhuman strength. "Emma!" His arms engulfed her, pulling her tight against his chest. She felt his heart hammering, wild, furious, desperate. He lifted her as if she weighed nothing, shielding her from falling debris, his body scorching where it pressed to hers. He carried her out into the night, the flames roaring behind them like the wrath of gods. Outside, the pack gasped at the sight. Emma cradled in the arms of their alpha, soot streaking her skin, blood dripping from her temple, but alive. Damien lowered her gently onto the grass. His thumb brushed the ash from her cheek. Their eyes locked, her lips trembling, his jaw clenched with fury and relief. "You could have died," he growled, his voice ragged. "Do you understand? You're mine. I won't lose you." Something inside her broke. No, not broke. Burned. The fear, the shame, the endless tug of war between fated mate and forbidden desire. All of it incinerated in that moment. Her hand curled into his shirt, pulling him down. Their lips crashed together. It wasn't a kiss. It was ruin. His mouth devoured hers, tasting smoke, blood, desperation. She clung to him like air, her body trembling against the steel of his. His hands branded her hips, dragging her closer, until there was no space, no doubt, no past, only fire. They kissed amidst the ruin, a promise sealed in ash and hunger. And in that kiss, Emma felt it. Their bond was unbreakable now, a chain forged in passion and sealed in pain. But the night wasn't finished with them. The flames had barely dimmed when the old seer, her cloak singed, her eyes wild with visions, stumbled forward from the shadows. She raised a shaking hand, pointing directly at Emma. Her voice echoed, guttural, as though borrowed from something older, darker. The Luna of two mates will bring only death. The pack froze. Damien's hold tightened around Emma, his eyes narrowing, but the words had already sunk like knives. Emma's breath caught in her throat, her lips parting in horror. Two mates? The prophecy hung in the night air like smoke, and Emma realized the fire hadn't been the true danger at all. It was her. The seer's words still echoed in Emma's ears, heavy as chains. The Luna of two mates will bring only death. The pack's murmurs rippled through the night like a curse. Eyes that once worshipped her now gleamed with suspicion, some with fear, others with anger. Damien growled, silencing them, but Emma felt the weight pressing on her chest. Back in his chambers, his fury boiled. He paced like a predator, his bare chest gleaming with sweat and soot, his muscles rigid with tension. They dare question you, my Luna. His voice was a storm. But Emma's trembling hand pressed to her stomach, and her world tilted. Her wolf whispered the truth before her mind dared believe it. She froze, her lips parting. Damien. Her voice was barely a breath. I think I'm carrying your air. The words shattered the room. Damien stopped cold, his breath hitching, his eyes snapping to hers with a mix of shock, hunger, and something darker, fear. He strode forward, falling to his knees before her, his large, calloused hands pressed against her still flat belly, his forehead lowering until it touched the space just above her navel. For the first time, his voice broke. My blood, he whispered. My legacy. Our child. His hands trembled as they cupped her hips. Then his head tilted back, his eyes blazing gold. No one will touch you. No one will touch what's mine. But not everyone bowed to that vow. News spread faster than fire. By the next dawn, Marcus knew. The rejected mate, the cruel beta who had once owned her, gathered his wolves under the blood-red sunrise. His declaration echoed like thunder across the valley. That child is an abomination. I will rip it from her before it takes its first breath. Emma's heart squeezed in terror, but also in defiance. Her hand lingered over her stomach as though her body itself could shield the life inside. He won't touch you, she whispered to her unborn child. I won't let him. Damien's grip on her tightened, his lips trailing along her jaw, his words a snarl hot against her skin. Let him come. He'll die before he ever lays a hand on you. The heat of his vow burned as much as the press of his mouth, as though his hunger for her had only deepened now that she bore his heir. But fate was already sharpening its blade. That night, as the firelight flickered low, Emma walked the palace halls alone, her mind heavy with dread. A shadow slipped behind her, silent as death. She barely had time to gasp before icy steel kissed her skin. The assassin's blade sliced across her belly. Blood welled hot and shocking as Emma staggered back, her hands flying to her stomach. A scream tore from her throat, one that would shake the entire palace awake. Emma's scream tore through the night, echoing like a death knell through Damien's palace. Her hands clutched her belly, warm blood seeping between her fingers. The world blurred in crimson and terror until Damien appeared, his wolf already ripping through his skin. His roar shook the marble pillars, a sound born of pure primal fury. He caught Emma before she fell, his arms wrapping around her trembling body. His lips pressed against her hair, frantic, desperate. Mine. You're mine. Both of you. She wanted to cling to him, but her vision swam. The child, she gasped. Damien's eyes, glowing like molten gold, locked onto the shadow fleeing down the corridor. He placed Emma gently onto the cold stone floor, his voice a guttural snarl. Hold on for me. Don't close your eyes. I'll bring you their heart. And then he was gone. The screams began moments later. Wolves howled as Damien's fury tore through the palace grounds. Warriors begged for mercy, but mercy no longer existed in him. He ripped through armor, bone, and flesh, his vengeance so brutal that the stones themselves seemed to drink in the blood. By dawn, entire clans lay butchered, bodies strewn like broken dolls across the battlefield. Damien returned drenched in gore, his chest heaving, his eyes wild. He carried the severed head of the assassin and dropped it at Emma's feet. "No one touches what's mine," he growled. Emma stared at him, trembling, not just from the wound stitched across her belly, but from the man before her. He was no longer simply the alpha who had saved her. He was something darker, a god of wrath, unchained. And yet when he touched her, his hands softened, trembling as he wiped the blood from her cheek. His mouth pressed to hers with desperate hunger, as though anchoring himself to the only shred of light left in his darkness. "Bond with me," he whispered against her lips. "Completely. No more Marcus. No more doubt. Just us." His eyes burned. "The final bond will make us unbreakable." Emma's chest tightened. His kiss was fire, his touch possession. Part of her craved it, needed it like air. But another part, the quiet voice inside her that still belonged to herself, trembled with fear. Because in Damien's embrace she no longer knew if she was being loved or consumed. That night, exhaustion finally dragged her under. Her breath evened, her body curled in his arms. But sleep was not mercy. In her dream, she stood in a hall of shadows, Damien kneeling before her, his golden eyes softened, trusting, even tender. He reached for her hand, only for her fingers to twist into claws. With one stroke, she ripped through his chest. His blood poured hot and fast into her hands. He looked up at her with his final breath and whispered, "You were always meant to ruin me." Emma jolted awake, sweat slicking her skin, her breath ragged. Beside her, Damien slept peacefully, his arm draped over her waist, his warmth cocooning her. But all she could see were her hands soaked in his blood. Emma clutched her belly, eyes wide with dread. Was it a dream or a prophecy? Emma lay awake long after the nightmare faded, her hand trembling over the curve of her belly. The prophecy's words coiled in her skull like venom. The Luna of two mates will bring only death. Damien stirred beside her, his lips brushing her shoulder, his warmth so achingly human compared to the monster she had seen in her dreams. For a moment she almost told him, almost whispered the horror. But fear sealed her lips. If he knew she dreamed of killing him, would he still hold her, or chain her as his prisoner? By dawn, the horns of war shattered all chance of confession. From the palace walls, Emma saw it. Marcus's army stretching like a dark tide across the valley, armor flashing red in the rising sun. Wolves, mercenaries, rogues, all gathered under his banner. At their front rode Marcus himself, his gaze locked on her, unyielding, burning with both vengeance and something dangerously close to love. Damien joined her on the battlements, his jaw set, his aura suffocating with power. It ends today. Emma's pulse quickened as she looked between them, the two men who had claimed her in different ways. Her fated mate and her forbidden bond, her past and her present, the father of her child and the man who had once saved her life. She could feel the threads of fate tightening. One of them would die by nightfall. The battle erupted in fire and blood. Damien's wolves thundered across the field, claws tearing, teeth rending. Marcus's warriors met them head-on, steel clashing against fur, roars mingling with screams. And at the center, like gods of destruction, Damien and Marcus collided. Damien's claws slashed, Marcus's blade struck. Every movement was brutal, primal, fueled by centuries of rivalry and the woman who bound them both. Emma stood frozen, every heartbeat a knife. She couldn't lose Damien, she couldn't lose Marcus, yet fate demanded sacrifice. When Damien's claws raked across Marcus's chest, Emma screamed, running between them. Her arms outstretched, she shoved against both forces, her voice cracking with raw desperation. "Stop! You'll tear the world apart!" They froze, two predators circling her, both panting, both drenched in blood. Her choice clawed at her throat. If she stood with Damien, Marcus would die, and with him, the last remnants of her old self. If she stood with Marcus, Damien's wrath would consume everything, including her unborn child. Tears streaked down her face. "I can't lose you both," she whispered. But the gods of fate were deaf. Marcus lunged again, his blade aimed for Damien's heart. Instinct screamed through her veins and Emma moved, throwing herself into the fight, pressing her body against one of them, sealing her choice. The world slowed. Blood sprayed. A cry ripped the sky apart. The one she saved collapsed in her arms, mortally wounded, his breath rattling against her chest. "Emma," he whispered, his lips brushing her ear. "Don't. Let me go." Emma's hands pressed against the wound, blood pouring between her fingers. She had chosen, but destiny might still take him from her. The battlefield had gone silent. Emma's scream still echoed in the charred air as she clutched him, her chosen mate, broken and bleeding, his lifeblood soaking her fingers. The clash of steel, the roars of wolves, the cries of the dying, all had faded into a hushed reverence for the moment the world itself seemed to shatter. "Stay with me," she begged, her voice raw, pressing her trembling hands against the wound. "Please, don't leave me." His eyes, burning once with dominance, fire, defiance, now dimmed into something softer, something achingly human. His lips curved into the faintest of smiles, even as blood trickled down his chin. "You ruined me," he rasped, each word dragged from the depths of his breaking soul. "Beautifully." Emma's heart split open. Her wolf howled in agony inside her chest, clawing to bring him back. But fate was merciless. His body sagged against her, heavy, fragile, slipping away with every fading heartbeat. Around them the armies stilled. Damien's wolves stood frozen. Marcus's soldiers lowered their weapons. Enemies and allies alike bowed their heads. The war had ended, not with victory, not with triumph, but with loss so absolute it swallowed the horizon. Emma kissed his lips, desperate, tasting salt and iron, clinging to the last spark of heat. "I'll follow you. Wherever you go, I'll follow." Her hands shook as she rose, cradling him against her chest. Her gown was drenched crimson, her hair wild, her eyes glowing faintly with the alpha power she had absorbed, power now hollow without him to share it. The flames of the battlefield raged high, consuming the dead, swallowing the ruins of both packs' pride. Without hesitation, Emma stepped toward them, the firelight painting her figure like a goddess forged in grief and fury. Gasps rippled across the armies as she carried him forward, unwavering, unstoppable. The prophecy's words thundered in their minds. The Luna of two mates will bring only death. The fire embraced her. The heat seared her skin, her tears turning to steam. Yet she didn't flinch. She held him tighter, her voice a whisper only the flames would carry. "Our love destroyed everything, so let the world burn with us." And with that, she vanished into the inferno. When the smoke cleared, nothing remained but ash. The battlefield lay in silence, kingdoms ruined, packs broken, armies scattered. Neither Alpha stood victorious. All that remained was the memory of a Luna who chose love so fiercely it consumed her, and a prophecy fulfilled in the cruelest way. Her name would be remembered not as queen, not as savior, but as legend. The fatal Luna. Deep in the ashes, something stirred, small, fragile, but pulsing with life. A heartbeat. Her child. And that too is where Emma's journey ends. A love so powerful it burned kingdoms to ash, and a Luna whose fate was written in ruin. But now, I want to hear from you. Do you believe Emma was cursed from the start? Or did her choices seal her destiny? If you were in her place, would you have chosen Marcus, Damien, or no mate at all? And most importantly, do you think love this destructive can ever be called love at all? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one, and your theories make this community stronger every day. And if you don't want to miss the next dark romance saga, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, so you'll be the first to dive into the next story when it drops.